to Niner Nate's Nonsense. We are here once again on YouTube.com. Maybe you're listening to the podcast. Doesn't matter. We're also on YouTube. Why aren't you subscribed if you're listening to the podcast first and foremost? Make sure you subscribe. Still giving away that jersey. Still trying to have more people come check this thing out. We're going to do shows all the way up to the draft. Got lots of stuff planned. But first and foremost, let me introduce my co-host for today. You know him. You love him. The one and only Jamal Armstrong. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good, bro. I'm excited for you to be here on this channel with you. I'm definitely honored. Niner Nate's Nonsense. I almost cussed right there because I was getting hyped for you. I chose to keep it in, but I'm really happy for you. I'm excited that you're getting this going, and I'm blessed and honored to be a part of it. There's already a lot to talk about because the 49ers are insane. It is off season, and it's past peak content already. So I'm super excited to jump into this with you. And I know we got some goats already here in the chat, some of the homies. I'm just excited to be here. I'm hyped up, and I'm excited for your growth here on this channel, bro.
Absolutely. And for everyone talking about that intro, how about that damn intro? We didn't have it last week. We got it this week. Oh my God, it turned out way better than I even expected. It's dope as hell. Every single week, the fact that I get to watch that video or just listen to that song, I get so hyped. I'm just ready to talk 49er football. and it's funny. I'll tell you a quick story before we get into like actual Niner news. The guy who made it for me originally sent me one with a ton of Jimmy Garoppolo, and I actually had to send him a message like through the chat. And I was like, no, less Jimmy. No more Jimmy. And so if you notice, there's a lot less Jimmy Garoppolo in there. And it's because I said no, because we're here. It's almost the 2022 season. Trey Lance is the quarterback. You know, obviously, I'm not going to say could things get any better, but man, I'm just happy to be here, man. I'm just happy to be here. So, Jamal, we got a lot to talk about today. The show is called The Deebo Dilemma. And so we're going to stick to a lot of Deebo Samuel talk, break down the whole situation, kind of talk a little bit about how we're feeling about this whole thing, and go from there. But let's start with you. How are you feeling about this whole Deebo situation? It's been about a week since this really started. What are you thinking right now? You're muted. I can't hear you. Uh-oh. I can't hear you. Uh-oh. Is my sound gone? YouTube.
Can you hear me now? You can hear me now?
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
I accidentally clicked the mute button. That's on me. My bad. So, yeah. So what I was saying was, I think this is a situation where it would be crazy not to, at minimum, talk about it, right? Deebo has made actions on social media that clearly we're sending a message. Now, does this mean he's absolutely going to get traded? No, I'm not necessarily saying that, because I consider it a tactic. I think this is a tactic for him. Either he decided to do it himself, or his agent told him, you know what, let's remove anything 49ers related. You are still a product and a service here, but we're trying to get paid, right? So he wants to do, and he's looking to do what's in the best interest of Deebo Samuel. The player, the product, the service, the man. He's looking to get paid. I'm sure you've heard other people say it. I've said it myself too. I mean, the man is 26 years old, so he's a little bit older for what the rookie wage scale usually is when players are going for their second contract. And yes, he is still under contract for another season. So 49ers are also in a position where they can play hardball and say, you know, we don't necessarily have to pay you right now. And I'm sure we'll get into real quickly. I'm sure we'll get into it on this show, both sides, what might be best for Deebo Samuel, what might be best for the 49ers. But, I look at this situation and I say, you know what? I didn't overly freak out about it. I actually heard about it the night that it happened. And I just wrote a small little tweet saying just my first initial reaction to it. And what I said was, I think it's more just a tactic. This isn't the first time we've seen players do things like this. I personally was critical of Kyler Murray when he did it. So in that same breath, I should be critical of Deebo Samuel in the same way. Do I consider it a little bit childish? Sure. But do I also understand where Deebo Samuel is coming from by doing it? Yeah, I think I can see both sides. I'll go ahead and switch and let you take over from there. I've got more thoughts and opinions, but that's kind of my first thoughts on it.
Yeah, totally. And so my biggest thing has been when it first happened the other day, I was like, this is kind of childish. And I thought it was childish
Yeah.
when Kyler Murray did it, but Kyler Murray's not ours. So, like I like making fun of it. And when Deebo did it, it was like, I'm going to make fun of it a little bit, but at the same time, it is concerning. The
Yeah.
weird thing about the 49ers, and I've mentioned this, I think he's going to be a 49er next season. He's under contract. I don't think they're going to trade him. If they traded him, I think that it would have to be for something crazy. But the weird thing about the 49ers is this like consistent thing they do where they just don't pay guys or like outright. So meaning like they pay guys, right? But it takes them a little while to get these guys paid. Like it doesn't happen right away. I think that there's a lot of negotiations that happen, a lot of back and forth. And I feel like some people like to say that, oh, this kind of hurts them and builds like a distrust or a doubting of the organization. I don't think that's the case. I think that they know what they want to pay guys and they find ways to pay guys and they find ways to pay guys that make them happy. And, it seems like people like playing for the 49ers, but when you get to this negotiation period, there's always like this weird back and forth that I'm not a huge fan of. Shay's saying nerds.
There he is.
I had to put it up there. It was making me laugh. And so it's been kind of weird because this is not the first time this has happened. When we talk about Buckner and, the narrative that DeForest Buckner was not chosen over Eric Armstead, I don't think that's what the narrative is there. I think that they didn't want to pay Buckner that crazy amount he wanted, and Armstead was willing to play ball. He was willing to do, the upright pay where they pay him up front. They give him signing bonuses, all that stuff. And Buckner just didn't want to do that. And so when I think about the whole Deebo thing, the biggest concern I have is really to the Devontae Adams, the situation with wide receivers and the way guys are getting paid now. That scares the hell out of me because now I'm like, okay, these guys want $30 million a year. They want like insane guarantees. And I understand like the guarantees are just going to keep going up. That's the nature of the NFL now. That's where we are. Every single year, these guarantees are just going to get crazier and crazier and crazier. But the question is now, do you want to, spend all this money on a running back wide receiver, a hybrid who has never played 16 games for your football team?
Yeah, no, and that's see, this is why we have to have a conversation about it because there's multiple angles. This isn't just black and white. This whole situation. Deebo Samuel, his rookie year, especially the last half of the season, you could argue was the best wide receiver. And I want to be specific about my words here. Wide receiver on the team, but he was also a wide back then too. We just didn't call it that then, right? In the Super Bowl, he was taking jet sweeps, set records of receiving yards or rushing yards by a wide receiver in the Super Bowl. He was killing the Chiefs. And so we've seen the value then. We've seen the value the last half of the season. Year two, what happens? Gets hurt. Doesn't play a whole lot. Comes back year three, goes insane, right? He ends with 1,405 yards on the season. Had set a single season record for the 49ers as a receiver, wide receiver of receiving yards through the first 7 weeks. I think he was fourth in the league at the time, and he got all the way up to as high as 1 and 2, but going back and forth with Cooper Kupp as receiving yardage leaders. And I'm impressed by that. And I guess the reason I've been so, I would say, adamant that we shouldn't trade him, but I'm not saying there's no reason like we should never trade him. There's levels to it. But the reason I would keep a guy like that is because of the offense that we do have. Jimmy Garoppolo is not throwing the ball deep down the field. I'm sure you've heard other people talk about the stats. Trey Lance had like 71 pass attempts on the season, something like that, and attempted deep balls, I think, 4 times, I think it was. And 2 of his long touchdowns were to Deebo Samuel. The third one was to Brandon Ayuk, I believe. So to me, because Jimmy Garoppolo and the limitations he has as a quarterback, we're not seeing a guy go deep down the field to get his, receptions. It's a lot short, intermediate routes and behind the line of scrimmage. And then starting I think it was week 9 was when we switched to seeing him do more of the wide back stuff. So to me, that shows more versatility. And I guess I've also been one that said, I think the fact that although Deebo Samuel isn't the best route runner in the league, I think it can be a little bit overstated because I think he is still a wide receiver. Does he have the best hands? No, he's been higher when it comes to drops throughout the league. I think he had 10 or 11 this year, which was up there in the top 5. So he has had drop questions. No question about that. I'm not disputing it. I do also think, though, with a guy like a Trey Lance, when he's going to come in and be the quarterback, it does open up the field a little bit more too. So that'll be more space. So while I would say his production might decrease, I think the efficiency in which he plays with and the potency of him as a threat on the football field only goes up, because it goes from 10 on 11 to 11 on 11, because you have the threat of Trey Lance, not only with his legs as on design runs, but also extending plays too. I've always called guys like him, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, I've always called them oh shit quarterbacks. And I've told you guys that in spaces as well too. But these are the guys that, defensive coordinators stay up thinking about at night. Shanahan might call a bad play, and these are the guys that get you out of bad situations, right? And that makes Deebo Samuel, to me, even that much more effective. So it's a tricky situation. It comes down to money. I know you and I have talked about this. We've talked to other people about it as well too. It comes down to, I think, whatever guaranteed money is going to be thrown out there. I don't think Deebo Samuel is going to get $70 million like these new guys, Stephon Diggs and Tyreek Hill, are going to get. I don't see that happening because the 49ers don't give out that much guaranteed money. I don't believe they've topped $50 million. I think Trent Williams and Jimmy Garoppolo are the two highest
46.
in guaranteed money. Yeah. So it's Jimmy Garoppolo and Trent Williams are the two highest, and I think guaranteed money ever given out by the 49ers. But I'm also one that thinks it won't take that to get the deal done. I think you can actually get this deal done between 25 million and before 30. So I'm not saying it will be 25 or it will be 30, but I don't think you have to get to 30 to get this done. It just comes down to some of that guaranteed money. And that's kind of where we're in this situation now.
Yeah, and I think that there's a couple questions to really ask when you're talking about Deebo Samuel and if he's worth 25 to 30 million. And the first question is, if Deebo Samuel was traded from the Niners, would the Seahawks, Arizona Cardinals, and Rams fans cheer? And that's the easiest thing in the world. Of course they would, right? They would be absolutely stoked. I almost sweared there. I gotta catch myself. They'd be stoked. And so that's part of it, right? You know that there are teams in our own division who do not want to play Deebo Samuel. And so that's a factor. We know that we have a weapon. We have a player who teams are afraid of. Yeah. Now, look at his track record. How many games has he missed from year to year? I don't think he's ever missed more than 3 games in a season or something like that. I think it's something like 3 or 4 is the most.
I think that second year he may have missed. I might be wrong. I think he may have missed 7. Right. That might be right too, but that's it.
But I mean, so the question is now, and this is kind of an interesting thing that we were talking about this because I think I went into space this morning and talked about this. They have gone out and signed a Ray McCloud. Right. And Ray McCloud, when you watch him, maybe he's never played wide back per se, like wide back, like what this actually is. But I think that they signed him to do the Deebo Samuel thing because I think that this is just part of the 49ers offense. No matter who the quarterback is, I think this is now a thing they are going to do because they believe that it gives them the best chance to win, right? So they go out and they sign Ray McCloud and they say, okay, Ray, you're going to take some of these snaps because we don't want Deebo's body just to get deteriorated like Todd Gurley, Christian McCaffrey, those kind of guys. And so that factor with the factor that, if he's not on this team, everybody's cheering. Everybody's happy. That is where I think that you can make an argument that $25 million a year is worth it because he is such an integral part to how good this football team is. Because when he is on the field last year, it didn't matter how many times Jimmy Garoppolo is standing back there doing this. Deebo Samuel is going to get the ball at some point, and he's going to do some crazy stuff. Yeah. And that's a huge factor in this team and their ability to compete with a team like the Rams, who, we've talked about millions of times, me and you. I don't think they got better, but they didn't get worse. Sure. And so you getting drastically worse by losing Deebo Samuel is something that I don't think the 49ers are ready for.
Right. So let me ask you this question. Through the first half of this last season, so the first, 8 games, the Niners were struggling, right? We were sitting there at 3-5. We were thinking we were pissed. All of us, right? Jimmy Garoppolo was not playing good football, and he was the reason the defense, I think, was getting cooked the way it was. I don't want to say he only. It's everybody, but the quarterback takes the blame too. he was missing open plays that were there, but Deebo Samuel was still balling out, right?
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm really getting at is, although, people talk about QB wins, and I'm not trying to talk about wide receiver wins, although Jimmy Garoppolo was not playing bad, or Jimmy Garoppolo was not playing well, Deebo Samuel, I felt, still carried him. If we look at his stats, Jimmy Garoppolo's stats without Deebo Samuel, do we know how bad it would be? I believe that Deebo Samuel ended the season. Well, he had 6 catching touchdowns and 8 receiving touchdowns, so 14 total touchdowns on the season. Jimmy Garoppolo only had 20 touchdowns, like total, over the course of 16 games? Did he sit out 2 games or 1? Do you remember?
Jimmy sat out 2 games last year.
Okay, 2 games. So
Trey started 2 games specifically.
That's right. That's correct. Yes. So I guess what I'm mainly getting at is, it didn't matter that Jimmy Garoppolo was doing that bad in terms of his production, but he's also the reason that we were able to turn the season around too. And he still, his level of production only increased once we moved him as a wide back. So I guess the question I had for you is Deebo Samuel more valuable than Jimmy Garoppolo in this situation? And is it easy for us to move off of a guy like Deebo Samuel, considering, yes, it might look different with Trey Lance, but he's still produces, right? He's still just producing. And that's what football's about.
So my thing is when we're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo and how he had Deebo Samuel as a weapon, right? And it helped him immensely, made him keep his job, because I think even though last week I had on Chad, and he talked about how Trey Lance was supposed to redshirt for a season. There were times this season where Jimmy Garoppolo was playing so poorly that the redshirt season would end, and I think that's not something the 49ers took lightly. So then when you think about Trey Lance and what he is coming into with this football team, if he's coming into a football team without Deebo Samuel, that puts him at a pretty drastic disadvantage to what Garoppolo had, which then that I think that's unfair to him. And so it's just he's such an important part of this team that as long as you're not paying him, $30 million a year, I think I'm okay with giving him the $25 million. Because in that quote specifically that everyone keeps quoting, I guess it was a rapper's Instagram that he retweeted or Instagram.
Oh yeah, if it's not 25 million, we don't want it, right?
Yeah, exactly. If it's not 25 million, we don't want it. And so if 25 million is what he wants, I'm cool with that. The problem I have is, where's the fully guaranteed money on a guy who, has missed some games in his career?
Exactly. And that's the question. So when you look at guys like Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and Stephon Diggs, right? Their track record of success and extended success is longer. They've also had more consistency at a higher level, right? So it's a gamble. It would be a gamble on the 49ers side, and it's a gamble on Deebo Samuel's side. And I think both sides truly know that. And that's why you see a guy like Deebo Samuel who's adamant about making his money and getting that now, which I want to be very clear, I'm all for. Players are only here for a certain amount of time. The organization, they're always here, right? And they will really get rid of you. If you're not producing anymore, you're done, right? So when your stock and your leverage is high, you want to strike. And so you'll see a lot of people say, man, Deebo Samuel, he's not a team player, and all these things, and they think his character is coming into question. I would say, I think the man is just trying to do what he can to make his own money, which I have no problem with. And Vish has said it, and I agree with this 100%. Deebo Samuel has turned into the heart and soul of this team. This dude has given his all. When guys like Jimmy Garoppolo, and you and I have had concerns about Jimmy Garoppolo coming up to the podium and saying, we did this and we did that and yada, yada, yada. And Deebo's out there killing himself. He's not in the news ever for any trouble. The most trouble Deebo Samuel's ever been in that we've ever heard is this right now, right? And is this trouble? No, it's just leverage and tactics. So I when it comes to him, the Devontae Adams, these guys, the Tyreek Hills, sure, they do have a more sustained success. They're also older though, right? So they're getting contracts that's going to be probably longer than their prime. Devontae Adams is still arguably one, at worst, number 2 wide receiver in the league, top 2 wide receiver. Tyreek Hill is somewhere up there. Yeah, these guys are all up there, and Stephon Diggs too as well. Whereas with Deebo Samuel, the kid's 26 years old. By the time that contract does start to kick in, it'll be after next season? So it'll be 27, going into his age 28 year. I thought this was interesting. I actually did some research and found that 10 of the top 15 wide receiver contracts have been signed within the last 2 years, and the average age of the top 4 wide receivers in terms of per year money, 28.5. So to me, that says, okay, he's 26 right now. That's starting to line up more and more with where these guys are getting the contracts. So, like I said, this is not black and white. Definitely a lot of gray. I wish I could be a fly on the wall in these conversations because Deebo has fair points, 100%. The 49ers have fair points, 100%.
Yeah.
They can truly say, listen, let's wait and see what happens after this year. Let's do it again. But I also, in that same breath, understand why he might be mad hearing that. Like, I put my heart and soul on the line. I've put my body on the line. And I've done everything you've ever asked for me and done it at an elite level. I had more rushing touchdowns than Dalvin Cook and a few of these other elite running backs, right? And I also was leading the league in receiving. Like, I've done everything you've ever asked for me. And so they can sit there and say, well, we need to see you do it one more time, which I have no problem with them doing. But I also can see why he would be angry for them doing that they're not putting their faith in him. So it's definitely a tricky situation.
I think not only that, I think that the 49ers are playing this very cautiously. And this is something I explained in the space on Monday night, or Monday. We were talking with a couple of Niner fans, right? And I want to explain this again because I think it's really important. The 49ers are going into an NFL season coming off an NFC championship game, right? I understand that. That is something I understand, that they were one of the best teams in the league last year. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is, while we believe, me and you, Jesse, John Chapman, we can talk everyone under the sun, right? Guys who we feel like know a lot about sports, know a lot about the 49ers, all believe that, the 49ers have a guy at quarterback who's going to be the future, right? Who's going to be a stud, a top 5 guy eventually, right? The 49ers do not know that. They have no clue. No idea. They didn't even know how to use Trey Lance properly against the Arizona Cardinals earlier last season. They are kind of figuring this all out as they go along, right? Mm-hmm. And so going into this season, I think a lot of the expectations was, hey, you were in the NFC Championship game. You're probably better than the Rams. Some weird stuff happened. You lost the game, right? So why aren't you going all out, going out and getting the best pass rusher available, the best corner available, and saying, hey, screw this, the cap's a lie, let's go blow it up? The problem with that is they're going into a season where they don't even know who they are. Like, I think they have like an identity, right? They know Deebo Samuel's going to play. He's going to run the ball. He's going to catch the ball. Ayuk's going to run beautiful routes. Kittle's going to be making plays, right? But the questions at quarterback and an offensive line are questions that the 49ers will have to figure out over the course of a full NFL season. Because if Aaron Banks stinks, it's going to hurt Trey Lance's chances to be an MVP. If they don't get this shit figured out with, I swear, damn it. If they don't get this figured out with Mike McGlinchey, or hell, have you seen Mike McGlinchey lately? That guy doesn't look like he can play tackle. So that is their big questions right now are, how good is this quarterback they drafted at 3, which we believe is very good, right? They don't know. We don't actually know. How is our offensive line going to be able to protect this asset that is, think about assets in the history of the 49ers in the last 10 to 15 years. Is there a more important asset on this roster than Trey Lance? Because I can't think of one. I really can't think of one in the last 10 years. This kid is immensely important. It is immensely important that he's good. And so there should be, the expectations for the 49ers shouldn't be, hey, we need to win the Super Bowl this season. It should be, hey, let's see who this kid is. Let's see what he can do. And then if he is the guy that every one of us believe, me, you, everybody on Niners Twitter who loves Trey Lance, if he is that guy, I fully 100% believe the San Francisco 49ers will go all in next season. They will spend the money. They will build a Super Bowl roster. I don't think they're afraid of building a Super Bowl roster. They're afraid of paying all this money to build around Trey Lance, and then he's not the guy. And that's the scariest thing for all of us. And I just think that they know this is the most important season. If this kid goes out there and just lights up the Seahawks and lights up the Cardinals and even lights up the Rams, the 49ers, as we know it, are going to be dynasty level football. And back for reals. Like 2019, we thought we were back. Last year, it kind of felt like we might be back. They will actually be back. Like the 49ers of old, the Joe Montana, Steve Young 49ers, who every single time they stepped on a football field knew they were going to come in, kick someone in the mouth, and win a football game. And I think that they need one more year, just one more year, to figure out that this is the 49ers. This is who they are, and this is what they're going to be. And I know that it sucks because I hate patience. You think I like patience? It's like one of my least favorite things in the world. I hate it. But if we are patient with the 49ers for one more season, I think it's going to pay off. And I think that the 49ers are being patient because they knew the Deebo Samuel contract was coming. They know Nick Bosa's coming. If you think that Deebo Samuel's playing hardball, you have no freaking idea what you're about to be in for with Nick Bosa. The Bosas are notorious for this stuff.
Right.
So, sorry, that was
Nate,
rant, but no,
that was great. That was great. And I couldn't have said it any better. And I agree 100% with your whole premise, right? Your whole premise is patience. This team is trying to figure out what Trey Lance is. We don't know. We don't necessarily know exactly what he is. We've seen glimpses and we've seen flashes of what we think the offense can look like because we've had a chance to see him play in 2 games. So we're starting to look at, okay, this kid's willing to, take shots down the field. He's a bit more aggressive. And I hate saying that word even. I hate saying aggressive because I think the style of football we'll play under Trey Lance isn't more aggressive. It's actually more safe because it's not just over the middle, right? We're not just causing guys to get short to intermediate and get popped over the middle. So having the ability to use the whole field, I actually consider it more safe. But when I say aggressive, I guess I'm meaning in attempts down the field. I guess that's why I say that word. But just for context sake, people can talk about aggressive this or aggressive that. This kid's going to do this. I actually think based off what we've seen him throughout college, he's a very, very smart, very cerebral quarterback. Usually knows where all guys have to be, right? And he picks his shots. If it's there, he's going to take it. I think right now we're seeing it through the first 2 games, really in the second game against the Texans, we see a lot of what I would call arm arrogance. He's a very talented thrower, right? And he has the ability to fit the ball into tight windows, but he's making those plays when the play is there. Now, yes, he did get picked off by Desmond King. Totally understand that. He was a rookie. He's going to learn how to, read those coverages. Now that he's seen it, will he do it again next time? He may do it once or twice more time. That may happen a few more times as he sees more and more football, but that's to be expected. So I'm with you 100% when you say preaching patience. Yes, there were some moves I still would have wished they made this offseason to set him up 100%. But I also understand that he's not going to be on a new contract next year, right? That'll be the 3rd year of a potential 5-year contract. I also remember, because I'm old enough to remember what the Bills have just done. I'm old enough to remember that they had a young quarterback. Now, the difference between the Bills and the 49ers was they decided to throw that quarterback out there right away, even though he was super, 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 even more raw, I think, than Trey Lance is already. He was more raw. And they let him play. They let that kid go. And they said, we're going to ride with all the bumps and the bruises. I don't know if you remember, but his rookie year, that kid was running all over the place because mentally he wasn't fully there yet.
Yeah. He had no.
He was running everywhere.
So it's exactly. And so when people don't realize is Trey Lance, I think he's a lot more ready for the NFL game. And I think that it was interesting. We had Chad on last week, former North Dakota State radio host, basically saying, Trey Lance. Literally, the last thing this man wants to do is run the football.
Correct.
And they forced him to run the football because he wasn't all there last year. And I think that, I've been a pretty big proponent of Jimmy Garoppolo is not better than Trey Lance. From what I've seen from Trey Lance in practice, in the games, Jimmy Garoppolo is not better than him.
Right.
But they decided their plan was to redshirt Trey Lance for a season. And We'll see how that goes. We've seen already all these workouts with Ayuk. This kid's constantly working out. I mean, you can love Jimmy Garoppolo as much as you want, but did we ever see videos of Jimmy Garoppolo working with guys every single day during the offseason? Because it feels like I look on Twitter and this kid is out working his ass off every single day, which is a huge thing for me because when I've worked at college football teams and I've done video work for college football teams, the quarterbacks who tend to start and tend to be successful at starting are the guys who want this more than they want to breathe. And it feels like Trey Lance wants this more than he wants to breathe. And if he can just come out, man, and just shut the haters up this season, the 49ers, I fully believe they'll give anybody they believe can take Trey Lance to hoist that trophy. They'll give him whatever money they have to, and they'll do what the Rams do. The Rams have a proven commodity at quarterback. The 49ers do not. That's why the Rams spend. That's why the Rams go get this guy and that guy and this guy. The 49ers haven't had a proven commodity at quarterback any year of Kyle Shanahan's tenure.
Yeah.
And that's a completely different discussion when we can be like, well, why did they go out and get Emmanuel Sanders? Well, they went out and got Emmanuel Sanders because Jimmy Garoppolo had nobody to throw the ball to.
I'm actually glad you mentioned Emmanuel Sanders because I was going to ask you about that. If let's say this season goes better than we expect, right? Let's say we're 8 or 9 weeks in and Trey Lance is everything we thought he was going to be, and we come out the gates and we start 6-3 or something like that. If that's the case, do you not think that there's especially depends on what happens in the draft, right? Depends on what happens in the draft too. But throughout the course of a season, right, there's certain holes that teams like to fill. And so before the trade deadline, could there potentially be a situation where the 49ers go get another cornerback, a different wide receiver or something like that? Let's say somebody gets hurt. Do you think that there's a potential of us making moves in season like we did in 2019? Because that season went, I think, better than Shanahan and all those guys were expecting. They saw we were true contenders and said, yeah, let's go get a guy right now. This team can win. This defense is legit. Jimmy's playing well enough. This offense is solid. It's rolling. Our ground game is sick. Let's get Jimmy a true number one that can help Deebo right now. And so I'm saying if the season goes better than we expect, I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. But at the same time, like you said earlier, very well, we have to be patient. So if we're sitting at 5-4 instead of 6-3, something like that, maybe they don't make that trade. Maybe they don't be super aggressive. I'm curious what you thought about that because I was thinking about that earlier with Emmanuel Sanders.
It's interesting you mentioned that because the thing, it's funny, like when you were talking, like you'll say stuff and I'll think it in my head and then it'll pop out and then it'll pop back in when you say something else. And it's funny, I was thinking about this, right? So, the Niner fans seem to be mad that the Niners didn't make any moves this offseason, right? That's the biggest argument, the biggest thing that people continue to harp on, right? Mm-hmm. But they did, right? Like the two worst parts about the San Francisco 49ers last season were corner, special teams. Where did the money go this offseason? Corner,
special teams,
right? Mm-hmm. And I understand, like, there's guys we want to, like, we're good, but we want to be better. That's what the Rams did. The Rams realized they were Super Bowl contenders. They were good. Right. They wanted to be better. They traded for Von Miller. And if the 49ers, okay, so I'm just going to put a scenario out there. This is going to get people hype, I think. This is some hype train shit right here, okay?
Sure.
The 49ers are 6 games into the season. They're 4-2. But the 2 losses have come to very, very, very close losses. Obviously, we don't know the schedule yet, so I don't know who they would be. Very close losses. Trey Lance.
You could just say, let's say it's the Chiefs, Chargers, or something like that. Let's just say it's those two.
Chiefs and Chargers, okay? And Trey Lance has looked like an MVP candidate when you listen to like The Ringer or you watch ESPN. They're talking about Trey Lance and how while Rodgers is the current guy to run for the number 1 guy for MVP and Russell Wilson's second. Trey Lance might be one of the guys who could, do something, right? And they're sitting there like they're noticing this, right? And the Ravens have Lamar Jackson tear an ACL. I'm not wishing that on him. And the 49ers say, okay, we're good. We're good on offense. We have Deebo, we got Ayuk, we got Kittle, we've got this defense that's balling, but we want to be better. So they call the Ravens and they're like, we'll trade you for a pass rusher. I'm trying to think of the Ravens roster off the top of my head. It's kind of hard. But
they got a young one. I don't think they would trade him, but Adafe Owe, he was a first round pick last year. That kid's amazing. Anyway, keep going.
I did the Ravens because I just couldn't think of anyone else. But like, so any team, right? Any team has an edge rusher that they believe that they want to pair with Nick Bosa, and Charles Omenihu and, Kerry Hyder. And they believe that if they get another starting pass rusher, that they're a Super Bowl contender. I could see that happening, absolutely. But
Great
that
point.
will not happen until the 49ers know and have some sort of inkling of what Trey Lance is, because we've seen him play one game in Arizona where everybody has now said, and I agree with them now looking back on it, the game plan was awful. To have a guy who wants to throw the ball, run the ball primarily, was an awful game plan.
Right.
They had this game against the Texans where Kyle did not want to show off Trey Lance. He did not want to show Trey Lance's ability off. He wanted to hold him till next year. He wanted to redshirt him, right? That was the plan. And the Texans, while they were a 4-1 football team, forced the 49ers' hand into showing what Trey Lance is, right? And so we saw the arm talent. We saw the ability to be mobile. We saw all of it. And when the 49ers see that this season, and they see it the way they want, and they see it with their guys, the Deebo Samuels, the Brandon Ayuks, the Kittles, and I think that this defense, as long as Nick Bosa's on the team, is going to be top 10, maybe even top 5. And I think that people are underestimating the Ward signing. When you think about Travarius Ward and what he meant for the Chiefs, right? He's a decent corner. He's a cornerback too, right? But when you come to a team like the 49ers, I think that he becomes cornerback 1 because Emmanuel Mosley's great, right? But there's always been that thing kind of holding him back. Travarius Ward is young. He's coming off of, playing pretty decent with the Chiefs. I think that he's ready to take that next step to becoming quarterback 1. Like, that's the thing is, like, we joke around all the time when we talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. He's 30 years old. He is who he is, right? This is a 24, 25-year-old kid. He isn't who he's going to be. He's going to continue to get better as he gets more reps. That's how the NFL works.
Right. And we have to say the same thing about Trey Lance, right? And that's really your whole premise, is what you're getting at, is once we see these guys on the field for an extended amount of time, and based off of the way this defense has run, like you just very clearly said, he's been a CB2. Travarius Ward has been a CB2. I'd go so far as to say having 2 CB2s, because I still think Mosley is a CB2, is enough to be good on this 49ers defense if they continue to play just as well as they did last year, right? 2 CB2s. But even if I'm considering Travarius Ward a CB2, let's say I think he's a CB2. On this team, he's going to be CB1 for sure. Mosley will be second one for sure. I totally understand that. With those two, with Travarius Ward and the talent and the skills that he possesses,
Ambry Thomas is still there. Don't forget that. Ambry Thomas is going to get better as well.
He will. And I guess my main point is with Travarius Ward, although he is maybe a CB2 and maybe he will ascend to CB1 this year, like in terms of stats and things like that. I think it's also possible because of the skill set that he specifically provides in being a really good press man corner. He's a physical, longer armed corner that can get up in your face. I actually think that's why the 49ers were so excited about bringing him in. He, like you said, he's a younger dude. I think he's 25, almost 26 years on this second contract now, and it's go time now, right? He's finished up his rookie scale contract. There's certain traits that he has, I think, that puts him in a position to, as people have said earlier on Spaces, maybe in a certain situation, it's a crucial game, NFC Championship game, crucial third down, and we need a stop. Well, he's now in that position to be that guy to go line up in the slot, potentially. Not saying he will, but potentially, and say, look, we need a clamp. We need clamps on Cooper Kupp on this potential play. And what I like about that, just for me personally, Cooper Kupp obviously has the versatility to play outside or wide. We've seen it. He's a bigger dude, 6'2", well, a medium-sized dude, 6'2". I think he's a solid 200, 205, but he's very strong. I think he plays very strong too. He's not Deebo Samuel speed-wise or anything like that, but his route running is elite. The dude just knows how to get open, right? But that's why I like the Travarius Ward signing. He's coming in to be that in-your-face kind of, I need to rough you up at the line of scrimmage type corner. So I like that. And I know that we're getting a little bit off topic here.
It's all good. No worries. Yeah, it's fine. It's a conversational show. Like we're talking about a bunch of different things. I feel like it's the off season. We're not so close to the draft where it's draft stuff, but like we can change the subject real quick. I want to know, if Deebo was to be traded, and obviously
I was just going to go to that.
Before we get to that, I want to say I think Deebo is going to be back. I want him to be back. I think he's an integral part of this team. I think he should be a 49er. I've been on Twitter. I've said I'll buy his jersey as soon as he's re-signed. Okay. But if Deebo is to be traded to the Jets, I'm going to start with you. What is the minimum amount, draft picks, player, whatever? I was listening to Jesse's show about an hour earlier. He mentioned Mekhi
Becton.
Mekhi Becton, like
they
got
the Jets.
To trade to replace oh my God, I'm thinking
Lakin
McGlinchey. No,
McGlinchey. Yeah, he's a tackle. Yeah,
to replace McGlinchey and then also a first round pick that would work. But I would love to know, what is your minimum amount you would want for Deebo Samuel? Granted, we do not want him traded.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there 100% with you. First and foremost, I would like him to stay here. I'm going to put my foot down and say I think he will be here. That's where I'm going to plant my flag. I think my opinion is he will, again, be signed by the 49ers. He won't be traded. But my minimum compensation would be, I know you hear a lot of people say 2 first-round picks. I just don't think that's possible for a wide receiver, even one as talented as Deebo Samuel. He's great, and I love Deebo Samuel. But DeAndre Hopkins didn't go for 2 firsts when he got traded. They actually got fleeced, right? This is stupid. Tyreek Hill didn't go for 2 firsts. He didn't. He was 2 seconds? I think he went for a first. So I expect 1 first-round pick. I would expect 1 first-round pick at minimum, and potentially a second either in that same draft, whether it would be if he's traded this year, or a second-round pick next year, and then at least 1 more additional either 3rd or 4th rounder, potentially even more than that. Now, if you're getting a player, go ahead.
Jesse just put up the trade that he talked about on his show. So it was Becton, 35 and 36 for Deebo and 61. Was the trade that he proposed on his show? I
would at least consider that. I'm at least gonna sit here and say I would seriously contemplate that, especially if it gets to a situation where we're actually trading him. I got to consider it, because my whole thing is, and you'll see in my trade packages, my whole thing is we need picks because we have holes to fill, more than one. So I'm not trying to just trade Deebo straight up for 1 player, unless it was like some elite player. Even then, I don't want to do that because I want more shots at the well. I want more chances. So if I'm trading off a guy that's elite as Deebo, I want to bring in multiple guys that can fill certain holes. O-line, D-line, edge, corner. That's what I want. So I love that trade because it does fill a need. Mekhi Becton is a young dude with first-round talent, by the way. He was a first-round pick, 2 years ago? A year ago? Exactly. I forgot. So that's huge. And then you're getting 2 top 40 picks, 2. And then, yes, you have to move off 61. I don't think I'd love moving off 61. But for that package, I'd at least consider it.
You're at least getting Christian Watson with one of those picks, who I know you are even bigger fan of the Christian Watson member of the fan club than I am. And
I am a big fan of him.
An edge rusher. So you're getting right. So that's the thing. My thing is, like, so granted, now you're not picking till I think 104 or something like that, which the Rams aren't picking till 103 or something crazy like that this year. Like, they don't have a pick till like the 100s. So think about this. So you're getting Becton to replace McGlinchey. You're getting Christian Watson, and you're getting the best edge rusher available. And I feel like that fills a lot of your holes, obviously, as long as Aaron Banks is good, which it's funny that we're sitting here and there's so much that relying on Aaron Banks, and we don't know what he even looks like playing football because we've never seen it. We've never seen him play because they wanted to live out the Lakin Tomlinson contract which is fine because Lakin is, they turned
Lakin's a good player.
They turned Dookie to gold with him. It's wild. Like, I think they traded for him. They traded for him for like a 6th-round pick. I remember he came in. The first game he played was he played with Brian Hoyer against the Seahawks or something like that. He came in, and I was like, "Yo, this guard is good. Like, this guy, they got for like a 6th-round pick, and he's good."
Get that man away from the Lions.
And then he leaves, right, and gets an absorbent amount of money from the Jets. Like, for a guard, that's a lot. That's kind of absurd in a way. And they're going to get a 3rd-round comp pick for it. Like, it's just like, that is one of like the success stories of the 49ers where when people are like, fire John Lynch, fire this guy. And it's like, no, like, did you realize like what they were able to do here? And so as long as Banks is good, they're fine up into McGlinchey. And the McGlinchey thing is where I get scared. And so if you're trading Deebo, you have to get a proven tackle. And I think that that's where Jesse got it so right on his show today. I think that if you're trading one of the most important players on the team, you have to get that. And so as long as they're getting a proven good tackle, a first round, and at least one first round pick or 2 twos, and then also like a fourth and that kind of thing, I think I could live with that.
And that's totally fair.
Yeah.
That's totally fair. And I wanted to say, I think you described it very well. And this is something I've been saying for a few weeks now. The 49ers right now are in a position where they know what's going on inside of the locker room, right? So they're seeing Jalen Moore and they're seeing Aaron Bakes. So they can say, even if it's not true, right? They can sit here and say, oh, well, we like what we're seeing from Aaron Bakes. We like what we're seeing from Jalen Moore and these guys. But you or I as fans, we're not seeing that. And all I'm trying to get at is it's fair for us as fans to, be a little concerned, be a little, I don't want to say worried, but you can have concern over, are these guys ready to play, right? We have to give them a chance to see if they are at the same time, though. But to your point, and what I've been trying to say as well, too, we have seen what they just did with Laken Tomlinson, right? And he did get a bag for playing really well. Granted, he was next to Trent Williams, but who cares? The man had to go out there and produce. Oh, by the way, he stayed healthy all the time, too. So good for him. So we got to give him credit as well, too. But my main point is we've seen them do it with Laken. We have seen them have guys like Brunskill, Compton. Although we don't love these guys, but the style of football that we play, it's allowed 49ers to have these guys who probably wouldn't be starters or maybe even spot starters on a lot of other teams, and they've been able to get honestly solid play out of that. And so for me, in my head, what I kept saying was my hope with the offensive line this season is that we get league average play. There's 32 teams in the league. Yeah. If we can be in that top 16, I don't expect we're going to be in the top 10. I don't expect that, right? But I do think it's reasonable to be within the top 16 because although Trey Lance is our starter, we're not the Chiefs, right? We're not going to throw the ball 35, 40 times. So we need these guys who are beefy. I don't want to say too beefy, athletic up front because we're going to run the ball quite a bit too. So if we can be league average, top 16, even up to 13, 14, I think that's more than enough. But in order to get that out of these guys, they have to be able to be on the field. They have to improve. I don't think asking for league average play is too much. Now, if it's getting closer to the 20, and 20 to 25, that's not ideal. And that's probably all 49ers fans, our worst nightmare. And so that's why I'm saying it's fair for you and me to sit here and say, I need to see more. We're not sure yet, but it's also fair for them to say, you know what? We actually have a lot of belief and trust in these guys. And for them to improve, they got to get on the field too. I don't think either one's wrong.
So for the last 10 minutes, obviously I want to focus on who would you replace Deebo with? But real quick, I just want to say, I want to ask you one real quick question and we'll get to that. If your starting offensive line was Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Alex Mack, Daniel Brunskill, and Jalen Moore on day one, how do you feel going into that first game against, say, the Arizona Cardinals?
Great question. How do I feel? I feel, man, this is I don't want this to sound homerish. I don't think it will, but I feel hopeful, right? Hopeful is the word I'm going to use because there's still unknowns. I don't know about pretty much everyone outside of Trent Williams. So if the 49ers decide that they're comfortable with these guys, and I guess at that point in time, if that's the starters, I think that we're going to see them in the preseason as well, too. So we'll be able to see a little bit how are they doing against decent competition, right? So I would feel hopeful that we could be okay. Okay. And I expect to see growth from there.
Yeah, and I think that the 49ers would know what they're doing in that situation. And I think it also helps that like Trey Lance is a different type of quarterback than,
Yeah. Right.
So,
but that's the part right there. That's what we're all most worried about. I want to see him continue to improve. I want to see him not to form bad habits, right? Because everyone's getting in his face. I don't want to see bad habits for him. So I'm with you on that.
Okay, so we got about 10 minutes left, maybe a little bit more. I want to talk to you. We've talked a lot about, we love Deebo. We want him to be here. If it came down to it, you had to replace Deebo. I know my answer. I know your answer. But let's talk about the guys who aren't Christian Watson.
Mm-hmm.
Who are some of the wide receivers? You're a bigger draft junkie than I am. My problem with the draft, and anyone who's listening to this will kind of find this funny, is if I fall in love with one guy and I get my heart broken, if I fall in love with 4 or 5 different dudes and I get my heart broken, it's way worse than just one dude. So I'm just focusing on one wide receiver, one edge rusher, one, because when I get my heart broken, I don't want it to get broken in a million different pieces. So you know a little bit more about the draft than I do. Tell me some of the wide receivers that you would want to replace Deebo with that aren't named Christian Watson.
Absolutely. Great question. So it depends on what happens in a trade, but if we are able to move into the first round, I'll name a guy from there. So I think Sky Moore, I love that kid. Yeah. I think he's going to be amazing. I'm sure you've seen some of my tweets as well too. I've kind of compared him and looked at him athletically in a similar light as a DJ Moore, who I'm a huge fan of. Speaking of which, if the Panthers want to make a trade for Deebo for DJ Moore, if it gets to that, I would absolutely do that because I think he is a great receiver. He's also a bit bigger, by the way, too, DJ Moore, but that's not who I'm talking about. Sky Moore, yes. So 5'10", so a little bit small in stature, but he's not a smaller guy. He's sturdy, 195, and in my opinion, plays a bit like stronger and bigger than that. I've seen him bounce off some tackles. I've also seen him get tackled pretty solid as well too. But minimum drop rate, I think he only dropped 6 passes in his whole college career. So really, really, really solid hands, really big hands as well too. Bigger than Odell Beckham, who when he was coming out of the draft had, I forgot the exact measurements, but he was known for having really big hands. So to me, those are things that translate when you're looking at jumping to the next level. Like I said, a little bit smaller, but he's a guy that snatches the ball out of the air, which Kyle Shanahan loves. We've seen Deebo do the same thing. I think Sky Moore is very similar. I also think he has the ability to play on the outside, although he's smaller, because of his play style. I think that it allows him to play on the outside. So that's one guy. Like I said, a little bit smaller, Sky Moore, but I think he would be insane. I think he could be really good in the 49ers offense, and I almost consider him draft bust proof. I think he's going to be at minimum a solid receiver. So that's one guy. Another guy that you could probably get on day 3 that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, who I'm really low-key really high on as a sleeper, Eric Ezukama out of Texas Tech, 6'3", 220. He has the ability to also play in the slot too. And if you look at that, like I said, 6'3", 220, big slot, but he also is much quicker than Jawan Jennings, who I also like too. But I like Jawan Jennings, wide receiver 3 this past year, wide receiver 4. I like him even better than that. And that's no shot at Jawan Jennings. Yeah. I think he has the best hands on the team.
Is perfect for what the 49ers use him for.
Yes. Shown that. And I think that this guy, Ezukama, can do those things that Jawan Jennings can do, but he's also a deep threat as well, right? So he could play. He's big enough to line up outside. I've also seen him line up in the slot. His start ability is also really, really that's what jumped out to me. I said, whoa, 6'3", 220, but you can line him up in the slot like that. That's good. He also is really good at contested catchability too. So those are things I really like. I know a lot of people talk about Treylon Burks. I'm a major fan of him. He's not like him in terms of the freaky athletic side of that. He is still athletic, but he's a guy that can give you probably a similar type value and do some of the same things that Deebo Samuel does that you could probably get on day 3. So those are 2 guys that I like. I'm also a major fan of Khalil Shakir. He actually is like a Deebo Samuel kind of comp to me. A little bit smaller dude. I think 6 foot. Yeah, he weighed in at 6 foot at the combine, but to me, he plays bigger than that. This is a guy, like I said, I'm looking at versatility, slot or out wide. I see him more almost only a slot, but also the ability to play in the backfield as well too. Offensive weapon, wide back there. I say some people might say that's a little blasphemy, and I'm not saying he'll be Deebo Samuel, but he can do some of those similar things, and he's not afraid to get hit. He's very fearless. I've also listened to some interviews. I think he's very, very smart. I think this is a guy that could come in and provide you a similar role as Deebo Samuel as well too. So those are 3 guys. I think with Khalil Shakir now, I don't think he gets out of the second round either. So if that's going to happen and the Niners do trade Deebo, we may have to actually use one of those picks to get him. But at this point in time, the Niners have 2 picks within the top 100 and then 1 early top 100. I think that third one's like 105 too. So
I fully believe if Deebo is gone, which I don't think it would happen. I even think even if Deebo isn't gone, I think the 49ers, specifically are okay with, moving down in that second round to go get the guy they want. That's why I'm not taking the whole Christian Watson thing out of my head, because I think that there is a chance that the 49ers are in love with him. They will find a way to get him, because they have proven time and time again, when they love someone, they'll go get him no matter where he is.
Right.
And so I'm not taking Christian Watson off my board as my guy that I want, because I believe that if the 49ers believe that he is an integral piece to make this team better and will help Trey Lance in the year that is most important to them for Trey Lance to be good, they'll do it.
Right.
The thing is the one thing I worry about is, we're talking about all these sexy picks, the Sky Moores, the Treylon Burks, the Christian Watsons. There's so many different things with the 49ers in their situation they're in, where they could literally just go offensive line and not be sexy at all, because they
absolutely.
And that's
I'm with you on that.
Fears I have with them, because I would love to have another sexy wide receiver. I'd love for this team to be a primarily offensive team with decent pass rush, good defense. They don't have to be a top tier defense like they were in 2019. I think this offense with Kyle Shanahan should be good enough that they're able to score points willingly, which then leads to you having I don't think a bad defense, but defense doesn't stay the same year to year. It changes every single year. They could be the best defense in the league in 2019, and then 2020 fall off, and then 2021 they're right back, and then 22 they fall off again. It generally doesn't stay the same. And so what can stay the same and stay relatively consistent is offense. And when Kyle Shanahan is your head coach, and I this is blasphemy saying this because I'm the biggest Kyle Shanahan fan in the world, but when we have the second best coach in the NFC, and he has continued to show that he can scheme an offense that could score points willingly, and now they have a quarterback who has those traits, those things you need to be able to put points on the board, then I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers maybe veer more offense over this, next couple years and become a more Patrick Mahomes, we're going to score points on you, willing you, and our defense just isn't going to screw this up for us. And I think absolutely. That might be where we see that differentiate would be this draft.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. And I know we're talking about who would you replace Deebo with, and I just mentioned a couple guys there, right? But if you're moving Deebo, like I said, you're probably getting multiple picks.
Yeah.
I personally feel like one of them, probably only one, would be a first rounder. So, but if you're also, let's say it is a 1 and it's a 2 this year, not next year. I know I mentioned it's a 2 next year. What if it is the Jets? I actually put the Jets down as a potential trade partner for mine, and I can go through that potential trade if you want me to. But my whole thing is to get picks. It's picks. If I'm trading Deebo Samuel, I need picks because I want more shots at the well to get better. If I'm moving off a guy like this, well, let me get better at edge. Let me get better at O-line. Let me get a safety, right? So I said picks, Elijah Moore, maybe even, because if you're trading for Deebo Samuel, he probably takes over slot. I would ask for Elijah Mitchell, but he also was a second round pick, actually, I think. So could we potentially trade for Elijah Mitchell? The Jets have 2 top 10 first round picks. I think it's pick 4.
Those. I think those are 2.
No, they won't.
Of them rebuilding around Zach Wilson.
No, I don't think they will either. I'm just saying they have those, but they also have 2 top picks in the second round as well too, like top picks there too. So we could trade there potentially and get those picks. And if that were to happen, I'm looking at one of those top tier safeties early in the second round, whether it be, I wouldn't take Leon O'Neal that early, but you could go look at a Lewis Seen. You could go look at, I would probably still look at Nick Cross. The one I would really love, Jaquan Brisker. So and I made a post again last night saying, although the 49ers have made, moves at safety this offseason, I don't think that they're done. And I would use an early round pick on one of these safeties who I think there's multiple safeties in this class who could start from day one. I would probably go up and get one of those guys. I would even consider looking at a corner and a wide receiver. But if they don't do those things, I mean, offensive line isn't bad either. I have no problem looking at offensive because we do need to fix that too.
Yeah, Jamal, I think there's so much we could talk about. I think we'll have to stop that conversation for this time. But I think that me and you are going to be talking a lot over the course of the next couple of weeks. You know, we already plan, you know, night after night one of the draft, we'll be in here talking, discussing what's going to happen on Friday, because Friday is our day. You know, like Thursday is the Jaguars' day, you know, all those teams' day. But, you know, Friday is our day. And so we'll have a lot of conversations about that. I'm sure we'll have you back on in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
And, you know, there's a ton of stuff to really discuss as we get closer and closer to the draft, because I think that with the 9 picks the 49ers have, they're going to build and continue to build around Trey Lance and bolster and do. I think they're doing this thing that people kind of underestimate, where they're, you know, spending picks on having guys for the future. You know, this Aaron Banks pick, if he turns out to be a stud, they're going to look like geniuses. And so I think we can look at guys like that too in a broader light, you know, and because, you know, we could talk about all these guys for a whole nother hour, basically.
Yeah.
But, if people want to check out your stuff on Twitter, if they want to talk to you, they want to message you, all that stuff, how can they do it?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can find me on Twitter. It's just my first and last name, Jamal Armstrong, and the number 4. Put that all together. You'll find me on Twitter. I do have a channel as well, too. We haven't been as active lately, but we'll get that turned around here pretty soon. It's called Niner Talk with Jasper and Jamal. Long name, but that is the title of our channel to our show. If you want to check us out as well, I'm sure we'll collaborate over here with Nate sometime, and I'll be back on here with Nate as well, too. It's been a pleasure, Nate, and an honor. Once again, I'm very, very happy for your success. It's good to see you over here. You deserve to be here, and I know you're going to blow up. I'm excited for it.
Thank you, bud. I really appreciate it. We're going to take the rest of the week off here on Iron Nate's Nonsense. We're going to I'm going on vacation. It's my girlfriend's birthday, so we're going to go celebrate that. We'll be back next week with the one, the only, John Chapman. And then the week of the draft, we got Jesse Naylor. He's going to come on and join us, and we're going to talk draft. It's going to be a lot of draft-focused stuff unless something crazy happens with Deebo, which I don't suspect it will. But, you know, I'll find a way to get some show going. I'm still planning the draft stuff. I think I do want to find ways to do shows on Saturday and Friday, because I think that those are going to be the days where we really learn the future class of the 49ers and who this team can be in next year. But I'm really excited. I think there's a lot to be excited in Ninerland. I think don't let the Rams fans ruin this for you. I think they've been trying to on Twitter try to be assholes. And so, you know, just get excited, be happy. And oh yeah, one more thing. The hype train never stops, baby.
Let's go.